New set, new look, new network. Catch the Tonya G Show every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com. Let's talk politics, business, the future, and more. Interested in being a guest? Email viralstreamtv@gmail.com. The Tonya G Show, where the guest is the star of the show. Every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. live streamed on WeBelieveDigital.com. Welcome to the Tonya G Show, where we discuss it all: politics, health, community, business, and so much more. Today we're talking entrepreneurship and business. I'm joined by Mr. Joseph Brozier, owner of We-Based Management Solutions, located in Clinton, Mississippi, and Mr. Michael Jordan, owner of Michael Jordan Transportation Services in Ridgeland, Mississippi. They are here to speak about their respective businesses and talk about being an entrepreneur. We are glad to have you here, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for allowing us to be here today.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brozier, we're going to start with you. Talk to us about We-Based Management Solutions and the services you provide.
Okay, we're a small consulting business. Our focus is training, research, and development. We also work with small businesses. We have a component that help people that are just starting their business, maybe working with them on business structure, to get them started in terms of setting their business up.
Kind of go into details of what you mean in terms of setting up a business. If a company wanted to have an LLC or be a sole proprietor, how would you go about advising them on the type of business structure that they would need to set up?
Okay, first of all, we find that with most of the small businesses that we work with, people have an idea. They have an idea they want to do this, and they know they can make money at it, they think, but they don't have a plan. So we begin from the beginning. We talk to them about what their goals and objectives are. Is your business a one-person business? Do you have more than one person involved? Are you building a business for long-term sustainability, or are you just building a business for right now? Mm-hmm. And we talk to them in those areas, and if it's a situation where they're trying to build a business for sustainability, to pass down to their children or grandchildren or whatever, then we encourage them to either build an LLC mm-hmm. or C Corp, as opposed to a single or sole proprietorship.
Okay.
Mainly because an LLC gives them, especially small businesses, their protections from taxes that a corporation won't give them. For an example, if you're incorporated, then you're a business, and your responsibility is both. If someone files a suit against you, mm-hmm. they can take your business, they can take your personal assets.
Gotcha.
If you file on an LLC, then your personal assets are separate from your.
They're protected.
Right, they're protected, separate from your business. Then, of course, the sole proprietorship, you're responsible for everything, so there are really not any protections there. So we just kind of walk them through the pros and cons of each, and let them decide what's best for them, and then we help them with getting the necessary paperwork done and stuff like that.
Gotcha. So I read a lot about We-Based on LinkedIn, and it says that you are a small business development strategist with a background in human resource development and program design development and implementation. Talk about your background in human resource development and what you did in that capacity and for how long you did that.
Mm-hmm. How long, man? How long? I got into the training following a job, so to speak.
Absolutely.
I spent my younger years working at the Mississippi State Penitentiary. At that time, Mississippi State Penitentiary was under federal court orders, mm-hmm. and the court mandated that they form a training division because they was going to form a Department of Corrections. And that training division was responsible for training correctional officers and anyone else that worked within the agency. I was asked if I was interested in being a trainer.
With no experience?
With no experience. And I said, yeah.
Right.
And the guy that was heading the program, he's with the Department of Education, he said, fill your application out and come on to the interview. I filled my application out, went to the interview, and I had 3 people on the panel. And one of the panelists asked me, what did I think the most serious problem was as far as correction officers and inmates and the penitentiary itself. And I told them that there was a big lack of communication. I said inmates know everything, officers don't know anything. And when I said that, one of the guys sit up in his seat and he said, where did you learn your IPC skills? I didn't have a clue what that was.
Right. I'm about to ask you, what is IPC?
I didn't have a clue what that was. And I told him, I said, I hadn't learned any IPC skills, I just know that's what the problem is. A few days later, I was notified that I had the job.
Oh, wow.
As soon as I got the notification, I went and found out what IPC skills were.
Smart man.
Yeah.
What is IPC skills?
Interpersonal communication skills.
Interpersonal
communication skills.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so that's what got me into the training arena. We came down here, me and two other guys, and we researched and developed a training program for the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
And I stayed with that program as training director for a number of years until I decided I wanted to do something different.
Okay.
And then I walked into the car business, and it was a different world. So after being in the car business for a number of years, I decided that I really want to get back in training. Mm-hmm. And that led me to the Department of Human Services. And I became training director for the Department of Human Services.
Okay.
After being training director for them for a number of years, I said, hey, I can do this.
You can do your own.
I can do my own.
Right.
So, in 2002, I formed WeBase Management Solutions. In 2004, I got it incorporated, and I started doing part-time training. I still work for the Department of Human Services, mm-hmm. but I was doing part-time training for myself and built up a good clientele.
Let's talk about your clientele base. That's one of my questions. What do some of your clients look like? Because you have businesses and civic groups and different things that I was reading. So talk about your client base and how varied it is.
Pretty varied, because we work with state employees, we work with churches, we work with community groups, we work with small businesses, we work with individuals. Mm-hmm. So our client base is pretty varied. The focus right now is small businesses, because I think that there's a real need there. The money is not there, but the need is there. So the real focus is small business right now. But we've trained everything from correctional officers to counselors and therapists and sheriffs. So we work with quite a few people over here.
When you say the money is not there, what do you mean? Kind of expound on it a little bit.
Most small businesses that I work with are just getting started. They need a lot. They don't
have the resource.
They don't have the resources or the capital. In some cases they do. In some cases they don't. So we do a lot of counseling and trying to help, and there's no pay for it, so to speak. But then again, I look at the big picture. At some point then there will be. So we just use that as a means of building our base and getting the name of WeBase and building the brand out there. It's at a point now where I have LinkedIn contacts calling me. That took a minute to build, but the brand is building.
Gotcha.
And so that's why, we do a lot of non-paid stuff.
Talk a little bit about when you worked as the training director for DHS. Mm-hmm. What were some of the one program in particular that you oversaw that you saw or that was beneficial to the agency?
We researched and developed a learning management system for the Department of Human Services. Prior to my getting there, they had been working on a learning management system for a number of years, and then when I came on, it was kind of thrown into my lap. The Department of Human Services is broken up into 12 different divisions. Each division is their own little kingdom.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so it took a lot of work with the different agency heads, showing them the benefits of a learning management system, getting them to understand, although training and human resources would be over the system, we're not taking away from their power or territory. We're helping them to better track their training, determine who need training, make sure that their employees are meeting their training goals.
Right.
So we developed the learning management system, and I think for me that was my greatest accomplishment with MDHS.
Okay. Well, we're going to go to a break. Can I get my screen, sir, with the countdown there, or with the shows? But we're going to go to a break. I thank our viewing audience for tuning in to WeBelieveDigital.com. We also are live streamed on Facebook at We Believe Digital Studios. We need everybody's support. Share, tell a friend, and tune in every Wednesday to the Tonya G Show. We're going to come back and speak to Mr. Michael Jordan about his transportation business. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Tonya Gray with your Insurance Minute. Every life insurance policy requires you to name a beneficiary. A beneficiary is typically the person or people who get the payout on your life insurance policy after you die. It may also be a trust, charity, or your estate. You can name more than one beneficiary, as well as the percentage of the payout you want to go to each one. For instance, you could designate 50% to a spouse and 50% to an adult child. You'll typically be asked to pick two kinds of beneficiaries, a primary and a secondary. The secondary beneficiary, also called a contingent beneficiary, receives the payout if the primary beneficiary is deceased. A big reason why people buy life insurance is to provide for children left behind. Usually this is done by making the surviving spouse or partner who cares for and is raising the kids the beneficiary. But what if you're widowed, or God forbid, both you and your partner pass away at the same time? Contact the KPG agency today to protect your risks. Thank you for tuning in to the Tonya G Show. I am joined by my guest, Joseph Brozier, and now Mr. Michael Jordan. He is the owner of Michael Jordan Transportation Services. Mr. Jordan, thank you so much for being here, sir. With a name like Michael Jordan, I mean, how often do you get, I guess, mistaken for the other Michael Jordan, when people just hear your name?
Well, that's common. Most people say, "Hey, you look like your name is Michael Jordan, but you look like Magic Johnson." And then when they normally ask me, "Are you the Michael Jordan?" I said, "Yes, I'm the short one."
Got you.
And he and I are the same age. He was just born in New York, and I was born in Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
And he made the name famous, so why not utilize it?
That's exactly right. So you provide transportation services to veterans and other clients who are disabled, elderly, or immobilized due to disease or disability. Why did you focus, and I know that's not your primary, that's not all of your clientele, but why did you focus on veterans and the elderly and disabled?
Well, 28 years in the military. Did 15 years in the reserve, 13 years active. So after doing the 13 years, retiring, and I came back to Mississippi, and my father was, his health was, he was a veteran, his health was declining, and so I was taking him back and forth to the VA. And realizing, the VA said, I applied for a job at the VA, and the VA said, hey, you was overqualified, but yet, so we couldn't hire you. So I asked one of the social workers, what's the most critical area that the VA need? And they said special transportation. So that happened in latter part of January 2014. Mm-hmm. I called Ms. Brozier and said, Ms. Brozier, I need you to help me do my business plan. We met at Ironhorse Grill and in February, and we got to working on the plan. In 2014, April 15, for 2014, we formed the company. And then on my dad's birthday, June 22nd, we went full operation.
Oh, wow.
And it's been 7 years since we've been in business, and we ain't looked back since.
That's a blessing. So you utilize Mr. Brozier's services to help with your business.
Yes, ma'am.
So you didn't have any idea, I guess, of how to structure the business, and you knew Mr. Brozier just through friendship from previous years, or how did that come about?
Well, Mr. Brozier and I, we got history, and then over the years, we did some small things together. Mm-hmm. And I know me, when it comes to executing, I can execute. Once the plan is put together, executing is no issue. That the military teaches you how to plan and execute from start to finish. However, taking the time to putting it on paper, well, that's where Mr. Brozier come in at. His strength was soft skill, putting stuff on paper, so therefore we can formalize the business plan, so we can move forward. Because when we're dealing with federal dollars, everything's got to be black and white. So I knew that was Mr. Brozier's strong point, and mine is execution. So why not utilize his strength and my strength and put it together? And like I said, it's been I want to say a marriage. It's been a relationship that has been everlasting, and I'm real grateful for Mr. Brozier.
That's a beautiful thing. So you not only provide transportation for the elderly and the disabled and veterans, but talk a little bit more about your company and the other services that you provide.
Well,
are the groups that you...
Well, in addition to the non-emergency transportation, Monday through Saturdays, we do dialysis and other doctor's appointment. And then on Sundays, we contracted with a couple local churches. So a lot of the seniors would like to still come back to church. So majority of the time, who's tied in is the seniors. So I have collaborated with some of the local churches and saying, hey, how about if I provide transportation for your seniors that's whether they are got in a wheelchair or got a walker. We provide that transportation so they can come to hear the pastor preach. And we have 3 local churches said, New Horizons said, hey, I'm on it. New Hope Baptist Church said, we in it. New Dimension Fellowship International, they in it. And it's been like a wildfire. And we've been doing that since we started.
Since 2014 as well.
Correct.
So you also will provide for functions like to football games, different type of events, birthday parties?
So in addition to the non-emergency, we do touring. We provide smaller groups, anything that's 15 or less. We take them to Memphis to the Grizzly basketball game, or we take them to New Orleans to catch a cruise line, or to the coast. High school class reunions, we took a group down to Biloxi just to get away. In addition to anything larger than what I have in my fleet, I have a relationship with other transportation
if you need something larger.
That it still goes through my organization, company. And I'm partnered with a guy that's got a 25, a 41, 50, 56 coach line buses. So if you need any kind of transportation, we can provide.
That is beautiful, Mr. Jordan. So what are your thoughts on the VA hospital shutting down the dialysis center? And has that or will that affect your clientele or business in any way?
Well, it's not directly affecting my clientele, but being a veteran and borderline diabetic, that I would want to utilize the service as well.
Right.
And just like when I raised my hand and took that oath and signed that contract, the armed forces said, "Hey, you got insurance, medical insurance for life." Well, that's a breach of contract. So So I think that the VA need to relook at that.
Right.
But I know from a financial standpoint, they're probably saying that they got to cut corners, and what can we cut? But there again, like everything else, the service members are the one that have made the sacrifice for them to have that job.
Absolutely. Do you feel like the nation or people turn their back on veterans? I mean, honestly, tell me your honest opinion on that. Being a veteran, do you feel like the nation will tell you great service?
Yes. And I tell Mr. Brozier all the time that, when you hear somebody say thank you for your service, and then you're looking back in the eye and you said, okay, how grateful are you?
Right.
And folks take freedom for granted, and that 28 years of my life, I was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. But to hear somebody say thank you for your service and then turn around, don't do nothing for you.
Yeah, take the VA, the dialysis away from you. Thank you for your service, but figure it out.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, we're going to go to a commercial break, but before we go, I'd like to remind you of our weekly show lineup. Tuesday at 7:30 p.m., Socrates Garrett Live. Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., yours truly, The Tonya G Show. Thursday at 6:30 p.m., the doors of the church are open. And Saturday at 10 a.m., the USDA Adventurous Update. Be sure to tune in. We'll be right back after the break.
Welcome to the Adventurous Podcast. I'm your host, Deidre Perry, and these are my co-hosts. And weekly, we will be coming to you to bring you the latest information in the world of agriculture. We invite you to join us every Saturday from 10 to 10:30. Join us. Come on, take an adventure.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Tonya G Show. Mr. Jordan, I want to ask you one more question. What do you think the city or the county could do to ensure that there's more transportation for people who are in poverty or rural, communities?
Well, most of the public transportation are not able to cross the boundaries. So therefore, what needs to probably happen is there's a lot of private entities, transportation company like my company, that would love to collaborate with some of the public transportation to help fill that gap, because we're not limited to each one of the boundaries. Case in point, Hines Community College, not college, Human Resource Transportation.
Mm-hmm.
They service Hines County, and that includes Utica, Edwards, and a lot of the service is not being done. I'm in the process of looking at trying to establish a point in Utica, mm-hmm. in order to help support the members there, the members there in that area, in order to provide some basic transportation.
Right.
So, but coming out of a private entity, and where they getting federal dollars, I can't compete with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, to answer your question, they would need to. My recommendation is to utilize more of the private entities in order to help fill the gap.
Now, would grants help in any capacity with transportation? Are there grants available that could help with that sort of thing?
It is, but again, you impeding into the federal dollars.
Gotcha.
So, which means that in order for it to be able to allot it for that money, you still got to collaborate with a public transportation.
Gotcha.
In order to use that bridge.
Okay. Mr. Broja, I'm going to ask you one more question about your business, and then I'm going to kind of get in general questions where you all can answer together. But you said that you employ a broad-based approach that includes specific steps the participant can take to become more proficient and effective at performing a particular job or task. Explain, I guess, talk about that, because you also talk about practical job skills. What is practical job skills? Is common courtesy, would that be considered a practical job skill? But kind of talk about what approach you would take with that.
Okay, what we mean by that, for an example, if you were interested in taking a class on customer services, and you went to a class on customer services, and somebody stood up in front of you and talked to you for about 45 minutes and showed you a PowerPoint on customer services and that kind of thing, or maybe a video, that's one aspect. But if they then added some type of practical techniques to that, maybe you break people down and you give them a problem to solve that involves dealing with an irate client. How do you do that? What are the steps I take? What do I say? Those types of things. So when I say that we employ a broad approach to training, we not only look at giving you a sharing information, we want you to be able to apply what you gained. And that means some type of hands-on activity. And for every aspect of training that we do, we try to make sure that we have some type of hands-on activity involved in that training process.
Well, now, do you do anything with restaurants in terms of customer service and helping businesses with their employees have better customer service skills? Has anybody approached you in that capacity?
Restaurants, no. That is needed.
Very much so. But just customer service across the board and everything.
The most customer services, believe it or not, training that we do is for state agencies. And I think that, and I think small business wise, it's critical, but it's not a focus. Small businesses, for the most part, focus on generating revenue.
Right.
They don't focus on how is my employee interacting with the general public.
Right.
I understand that in terms of making sure that you got dollars coming in. But the other side of that, for me, is building the kind of brand and reputation that you need to keep the clients coming back in.
Absolutely.
I'll give you an example, and I won't call any names, but the last place that I had office space at, the guy that I was renting from, I came in one morning, he was all upset. He said a lady had come in and they had a space that they leased out or rented out for different events. He said a lady had came in the other day and to look at his space, and then when she left, she emailed him, and she told him that the place was filthy, that he didn't really greet her the way that she felt he should.
Absolutely.
And he was all upset about it. He even put a post on Facebook about it. And when I read his post, I responded to him. I told him, I said, you ought to thank that person.
Right.
For letting you know what some of your...
So you can fix it.
So you can fix
right.
it. Look, sometimes a criticizing complaint is your best feedback.
Right.
That tells you what you need to do. So those are the kind of things that are needed, but when you're dealing with small businesses per se, the capital is not there. Again, talking about the money to actually pay somebody to teach my people effective customer services skills and client skills and that kind of thing. That comes from state agencies more than the small businesses that we work with.
I work in state agency, but I won't go there. I work for state governments, but I won't say which one. Also on your LinkedIn, you say that you work with small businesses to research business structure, and we talked about that. And you assist with licensing and certifications, research and respond to bid solicitations, RFIs, and RFPs.
Right.
Talk about the types of bid solicitations that you respond to and research.
Okay. Bid solicitations, first of all, are bids from maybe, let's take University Hospital. University Hospital may have a position or something that they need done, and they won't put out an RFP. They'll put out a bid and say, this is what we want, this is what we need, what would it cost to do that? And they put out a sheet of different things, and the person bidding has to essentially put together a response saying, I'll do this for that much, this for that much, and on and on and on, and then they submit the bid in. What we do is research the bid, because sometimes you have to read further than the first page. You have to actually dwell into what they're saying. University Hospital, for an example, the bids that we've seen from them, maybe 10 or 12 pages. If you're looking at a federal RFP from the federal government, it's 38 or 40 pages. So we do the research. We help you determine whether or not you got the capacity to do it, whether you got the capital to do it, or whether you got some kind of connecting resources. Because most of the times when somebody put a bidded project out there, they don't give you the money up front and say, go do this. They expect you to have the capital to do it, and then you get paid in increments until it's done. So it's a lot of things that go into it. You got to have all your certifications in place. You got to be in SAMs. You got to be in other regulatory type systems in order to be able to bid on the contract.
Now, what is the difference between an RFI and an RFP?
Tremendous difference. RFI is just simply the government puts out a request for information. Can you do this service when you say a request for information? Right. They'll put out a request for information, want to know your company. What are you capable of doing? But that involves you giving them everything that you're capable of doing. Capability statement. How many times have you performed this task before, this job before for other people? What you're doing is just sending them your information. And if they get enough businesses that can meet the RFP that they're getting ready to announce, then they put the RFP out there. If they don't have enough qualified businesses, then they don't put the RFP out there at that time.
Gotcha. Okay, we're going to go to a break, but before we go to break, I want to remind you about our weekly show lineup. Thank you so much for tuning in to WeBelieveDigital.com. You can catch our shows Tuesday at 7:30 p.m., Socrates Garrett Live. Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., The Tonya G Show. Thursday at 6:30 p.m., The Doors of the Church Are Open. And Saturday at 10 a.m., the USDA Adventurous Update. Be sure to tune in. We'll be right back after the break. But again, share, subscribe. You can look at us on We Believe Digital on Facebook. We'll be right back after the break.
Hey family, this is Pastor J.R.D. Stuckey
and Pastor Jonathan T. Phillips Jr.
And together we are the hosts of The Doors of the Church Are Open right here on WeBelieveDigital.com.
And you can meet us, greet us, and be a part of this platform, this conversation every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. We're ready to talk about those things that's going on in our churches, around our churches, what we believe, what we feel, those taboo conversations that people really, Pastor, just don't want to deal with.
So every Thursday right here at 6:30, join us where we're going to talk about what's going on with The Doors of the Church Are Open.
Bob knows it's never too early for a final expense policy to protect his son. Sue made sure that all their final expense policies are in place. Helen's final expense policy guarantees she won't be a burden to her daughter. Jane's mother's final expense policy covered her final arrangements and so much more. Your final expense policy can cover funeral services, medical bills, debt, and provide cash security. And there are no medical exams required. Call the KPG agency at 601-500-2751 to set up your policy today. Thank you for tuning in to the Tonya G Show. I'm joined by my two special guests today, Mr. Joseph Brozier of We-Based Management Solutions and Mr. Michael Jordan of Michael Jordan Transportation Services. I kind of want to just talk about just business questions. Just how did you come up with the name of We-Based Management Solutions, and just kind of talk about your mission statement of your company?
Okay. I came up with the name We-Based Management Solution because I don't know if you remember back when Enron and WorldCom and
Yes.
and those kind of businesses went under because of fraud and cooking the books and,
Yes.
and that kind of thing. When I was thinking about my business that I wanted to form, I was thinking about what was important to me and my values.
Right.
So that's what led to We-Based. We-Based stands for with ethics, business acumen, and sincere efforts, which means that we're going to shoot you straight. We're not going to try to fandangle you into doing anything. We're going to give you 100% in terms of doing the best service that we can do, and we're going to be sincere in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of encapsulates my feelings in terms of ethics and,
Right.
and fair dealings and that kind of thing.
And so, what is the mission, I guess the mission statement of We-Base?
2 words: we empower. Our vision is to empower the community through skill development. That's our vision, and the mission is simply to empower. If we work with people because we want to help people get to the next level,
Right.
whether that be in business, in a personal setting, developing your skills, whatever it might be, we want to empower you to move forward. So that's our mission.
Gotcha. And Mr. Jordan, what is the mission statement of Michael Jordan Transportation Services?
Just ultimately just to provide safe, dependable, reliable transportation for senior citizen and individual with the developmental or challenges.
Mm-hmm.
There again, as I stated earlier, I got into this by helping my dad.
Right.
And so my passion is to serve the person, the individual that needs some type of special need, and so far we've been doing that.
I got you. So let's talk about some of your company's goals. What are your goals for your company, Mr. Brozier?
Man, how many? Just kidding.
No, that's a good way to be.
Ultimately, I want to get to a point where We-Base is sustainable. I want to put people in place that have the same passion and drive for helping, first of all, and providing services that I do, and have the skills to kind of back that up. And then, long term, I want to be able to walk away and one of my kids or grandkids pick up the mantle
business
and say, hey, granddaddy did this, and he didn't know a thing. I got all these skills, so I'm going to take it to the next level. Ultimately, that's my goal.
So you're wanting to leave a legacy for your children's children with this business.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about, do you have employees? How many employees do you have, and what do you look for in your employees?
Okay, I don't have full-time employees. I have contract employees. I have people that have full-time jobs that have a training background that work with me. I do all the research and development. I do all the hustling, so to speak. And when we get things maybe I can't handle, or we got more than one thing going on, then I have a group of people that I call and say, hey, we got this going on, can you handle this? And they do it. I've got about 4 people that work with me on the outside.
So how would you describe your company's success so far?
We've been moderately successful. It's interesting because when I walked away from DHS, I had 8 or 10 people that I was doing part-time training for. And in my mind, I said, hey, I already got to start. I got these people already lined up. So I can just walk away from here and grow from where I am. I walked away from DHS. Not a single person that I had done training for when I had a part-time business wouldn't return calls.
Really?
Really. And so actually I ended up starting from scratch all over again. And really 2017 was my kind of like my breakout year where I could say, hey, I finally got back to where I needed to be, and I can build from there. But I tell anybody that's just starting out, it takes more than an idea.
It does.
And it doesn't matter how carefully you plan.
Right.
Things are going to happen.
Indeed. Let's talk about what it takes to be successful just in business from the both of you. Being a successful business owner, what type of characteristics and traits does it take to be an entrepreneur? Because it's not for the faint of heart. It is not. So let's start with you, Mr. Jordan. Tell me about that.
You got to have determination, perseverance. Starting out, it was hard, and it got to a point where the business was like 24/7.
Right.
And it's just overwhelmed. It's so overwhelmed that determination is if I can sum it up in one word, you've got to have determination in order to make sure that you start to finish.
Absolutely. Mr. Brozier, what does it take to be successful in your business?
Of course, it takes determination. It takes a lot of drive. You can't think 8 to 5 or 8 to 4 anymore. For me, it's 24/7. I'm always doing something that's related to my business. So it takes you got to be a risk taker. You got to be fearless. You can't be afraid to fail. People that's been in the Army say failing is not an option, right?
Right. Right. But you have to be willing to.
Well, you got to know that if you don't fail at something, you won't succeed at anything.
Right.
And I like to tell people I've never failed at anything because I've learned from everything that I did.
Absolutely.
So you can't fear going out there and trying to put your idea in place and working to make it happen. And the other thing is you got to realize it takes time.
It most definitely takes time.
Mm-hmm.
What has been the most rewarding thing about your business, and what has been the most challenging obstacle, I guess, that you faced in your business, and how you overcame that?
The most rewarding thing, and I think about it all the time, I was on the coast doing some stress management training. And I guess I had about 20 or 30 people in the class. And I had this lady in the back of the room, and she was asking questions. And one of the things we talk about in stress management is sometimes you have to learn to use that big word, and that big word is no. And so I was doing a presentation, and she raised her hand, and she said, "Mr. Broach, I have never learned to use that word." She said, "I'm so glad you said that." And she started crying. She said, I've been doing for everybody but myself all my life. She said, I'm going to start using that word no. And that stays with me even now. I think about that lady because there are so many people that's that way. We want to please everybody else, and sometimes we go out of our way to please everybody else, and we're just afraid to say no. It hurts to say no sometimes, but you have to learn to say no, because my deal is if you can't help yourself, you can't help anybody else.
And what has been, I guess, one of the most challenging things in your business, or an obstacle that you had to overcome?
Money.
You better say it, sir.
Money.
Yes, indeed.
I'll tell you the most hurtful thing for me. I told you when I walked away from DHS, right? Mm-hmm. I had X number of dollars that I felt I got this clientele over here. I got X number of dollars. I'm gonna put all this money into WeBase, and I'm gonna grow it from there. I had me a year's map. I had everything mapped out for a year because I knew within that year I have everything. I got 3 months behind on my house payment. Lost everything. Got 3 months behind on my house payment and had to go to my children to say, hey, y'all, I'm 3 months behind on my house note.
Hold that thought, Mr. Brozier.
Okay.
We're going to go to break, and we'll be right back after this message. Socrates Gary Live every Tuesday on WeBelieveDigital.com. Socrates talks politics, finances, and social issues that affect the Black community and so much more. Phenomenal guests and engaging conversation. Straight talk, no nonsense topics that are informative, educational, and inspiring. Socrates goes live with politicians, church leaders, business owners, and others. The time is now. Talking to you about us. Socrates Gary Live every Tuesday on WeBelieveDigital.com. Bob knows it's never too early for a final expense policy to protect his son. Sue made sure that all their final expense policies are in place. Helen's final expense policy guarantees she won't be a burden to her daughter. Jane's mother's final expense policy covered her final arrangements and so much more. Your final expense policy can cover funeral services, medical bills, debt, and provide cash security. And there are no medical exams required. Call the KPG agency at 601-500-2751 to set up your policy today. You're tuned in to the Tonya G Show. Again, we're with guests Mr. Joseph Brozier and Mr. Michael Jordan. You were saying, Mr. Brozier, that you had gotten behind on your house.
Yeah, that was the most hurtful thing for me in terms of my business, because I had to go to my children to bail me out. And I said, never again.
Right.
Now, admittedly, I had some habits that I had to cut. You know, you got to give up some stuff.
Yeah, you do. You got to be real with yourself.
You got to be real with yourself.
Yeah.
So I had to cut out some habits and focus strictly on my business, because I said I'd never do that again. So that was the toughest thing for me as far as my business is concerned.
Gotcha. Mr. Jordan, what about you? What has been the most rewarding thing that's happened in your business? And I want you to talk about an obstacle that you had to overcome as well.
Well, if I may start with the obstacles, the obstacle is trying to find dependable people to work.
Yes, sir.
And and the pandemic just made it even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So the average consumer can't deal with someone with some type of disability. So what we try to do is trying to make sure that we get someone that's 40 or older, in order that has the temperament, in order to talk and
the patient
with the clients that we're dealing with.
Right.
So that's the most critical area that we're dealing with, and that's still going on today.
Gotcha.
The most rewarding thing is that, again, going full operation on my dad's birthday. So everything that I'm doing, even though he has gone on to glory, it's still that passion is still there, because
this all started because of him.
Correct.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, Mr. Brozier, how has COVID affected how you've done business? Has it changed it for the better?
Well, it has forced me to take a look at some things that I was not taking a look at, so to speak, because primarily everything that we've been doing has been hands-on, in-house, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew, and I know in the back of my mind, I knew we should have been doing some things virtually, but we just didn't. Now it's forcing us to look at doing some things virtually, even when we get back into a physical setting. We are still going to do some things virtually.
Mm-hmm.
So it has its effects, no doubt about it. I do a lot of things with school right now, which keeps me in the front of small business people,
mm-hmm.
and helps me stay abreast of what the needs are and that kind of thing. It has changed the way that you look at things. Really.
Got you. I kind of want to get off base a little bit and talk about Jackson. And I know your businesses are based in Clinton and based in Ridgeland. But here lately we have been talking about the crime crisis in Jackson. May 4th, there was a special agenda of the city council, and law enforcement were in attendance, and they were talking about the crime crisis. I'd like to just get your perspective on what do you think of Jackson and its crime, and do you feel that the crime is affecting businesses and that's why businesses don't come to Jackson? And I want to hear from both of you on that.
Yeah, crime does affect business. If people are, you go to businesses and they got the doors locked, and they got to look out the window to see who it is. You can't sustain a business that way. Or you go to a business and the people behind the counter, or the people that's serving you, spend more time trying to make sure you're not doing anything that's going to harm them, as opposed to getting what you need and getting out. Sure, it affects the business community tremendously. What can we do about it? I wish I knew. I don't know.
You mentioned that off camera that you had an office here in Jackson and then you moved. Was it because of the area and the crime, or talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, because when we first started, we was on Highway 80 at the Enterprise Center. Mm. At one time, the Enterprise Center was the hub
place.
For small
yes,
businesses.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
When I first went out there, we had about 100 small businesses out there. It got to the point where when I went out there, they had 24-hour security as well. It got to the point where they got rid of the security. Drugs started coming in. You enter the building, you could smell marijuana smoke everywhere. And before I finally left, they were skateboarding up and down the hallways.
Oh, wow.
It just got bad.
It did.
It just got bad, and so we had to leave from over there. We went to Fortification Street. It was not much better because we had to keep the door locked all the time. We had a receptionist, of course, but she still had to say, "Who are you here to see?"
Right.
Before she would open the door.
Gotcha.
Which was not really conducive. But
exactly.
It was a little bit better than there. And then in 2019, we ended up getting office space in Fondren. And I think that probably would have worked out had we been able to stay. Mm-hmm. But we had, when we first moved in the building, we had 6 tenants. Before we shut the building down, it was just me and the people that we was leasing from.
Oh wow!
Their businesses just was not sustainable, and he couldn't keep paying the lease because he didn't have anybody other than me that was supporting him.
Gotcha. Mr. Jordan, I'd like to get your thoughts on the crime crisis in Jackson, and do you think it affects businesses and why people won't come to Jackson?
Well, overall, it does affect. It does affect the business community in Jackson. As Mr. Brozier stated, nobody has the answers.
Why don't we have the answers?
We have the answers. We
can't tell the truth about.
I'm going to tell you what the answers are. Okay. And it's going to take the next generation to straighten this stuff out.
Okay.
The answers are that from here, you got to teach your kids discipline, responsibility, your actions have consequences, etc., and so forth. They got to be taught. We got children having children, and we got 35-year-old grandmothers.
Yeah, we do.
And that 35-year-old grandmother not thinking about that child. She thinking about where she gonna be this weekend.
Right.
Or he thinking about what he gonna be doing this weekend. I think it starts with the home. We can't put everything on the schools and the politicians. It starts back with what they used to say, it takes a village to raise a child. So that's, we can't turn back the clock, but we can start from where we are. My oldest son is 36 years old, and he tells me all the time. Now, I was kind of a disciplinarian when they were growing up. They talk back to me, "Are you crazy?"
I'm from that era.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I know better.
So,
yes.
But he tells me now. He said, "Dad,
we're appreciative of it now."
Yeah, right. He said y'all's generation. I respect y'all's generation.
Yes, indeed.
So much because these kids out here now, they are all, and it's not the kids' fault. I was in Walmart last year. Little kid I took it to be the grandmother was pushing a little girl in a basket. She couldn't have been any more than 3 or 4 years old. And she was wanting something that the mother or grandmother wouldn't let her have.
Mm-hmm.
That little kid looked at that woman and she said, "You old MF." And I looked. The people, a young couple was on the same aisle, and they looked. And then the young guy said, "Man, she ought to whoop." I said, "No. She got that from somewhere."
Yeah.
She got it from somewhere. So I think it just starts. It's got to start in the home.
Well, I definitely need to have you all back on here to talk more in depth about that. We have talked so much about your businesses. Mr. Jordan, I see that you have some literature there. Is there something that you want to share, your information and anything that you want to get out of how people can get in touch with you?
Well, you can get in contact with Michael Jordan Transportation. You can reach us by telephone number, which is 601-850-4020, which is my cell. Or you can reach us by MJS Transportation 1 at AT&T.net. That's the email. Or you can go to the website. And that's MJSTransportation1.com.
And Mr. Brozier, you give out your information?
Yeah, you can reach us at www.webasemanagement.com. That's our website. You can call me at 601-613-2340, or you can email me at jbrozier@webasemanagement.com.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It has been very informative. Thank you to the viewers for tuning in. We thank you for your support. Please be sure to tune in next Wednesday to the Tonya G Show. We'll be right here at 6:30 p.m. live. New set, new look, new network. Catch the Tonya G Show every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com. Let's talk politics, business, the future, and more. Interested in being a guest? Email viralstreamtv@gmail.com. The Tonya G Show, where the guest is the star of the show. Every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. live streamed on WeBelieveDigital.com. The average cost of a funeral is over $8,500. Are your loved ones prepared for this financial burden? If you are 85 years old or younger, Final Expense Life Insurance can ease that burden by paying up to $30,000 for funeral and burial expenses. No medical exams, rates will never increase, benefits will never decrease. Call now to lock in your lowest rate possible. Don't leave your loved ones to pay your debt. Call the KPG agency at 601-500-2751 to set up your policy today.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.